righty. Good afternoon. I think we're ready to get started, so I'll wave hi onto the cameras there. It's my understanding that this is being recorded and broadcast across the Columbus Consolidated Government Television Network. Hello and welcome. My name is Mark D'Antonio, and I am the Muskogee County Probate Court Judge and Chair of this commission. As I've done every time we've had a meeting, I think it's still very helpful for everyone to go around the room, for everyone to introduce themselves, say anything else you all want to say. So I'll turn to you, Ms. Bishop.
Katie Bishop, born and raised in Columbus, and co-founder of YALA Public Relations.
Byron Hickey, retired Columbus Police Department.
David Leonard, I'm a trial lawyer with Littner and Begani.
Wayne Hales, publisher of the Courier Echo Latino newspaper.
Sue Smith, retired educator from Muskogee County School District.
Dominic Perkins, political consultant.
Down front.
I am Connie Smith.
Henrietta Kane, went to school here in Columbus, left, and now just returning back again.
Pastor Oscar Days, pastor of Grant Chapel AME Church here in Columbus, Georgia, also an educator in Chattahoochee County school system.
Jerome Williams, inbred here to Columbus, Georgia, Prince Hall Masons and NAACP.
U.D. Roberts, I'm the owner of Brentwood Publishers Group.
Ricky Boren, retired Columbus Police Department.
Barbara Chambers, retired United States Navy.
Gloria Strode, product of Muskogee County School District, graduate of the Albany State University, and I served as your 2010 U.S. Census Liaison and your 2020 U.S. Census Liaison for the Atlanta Regional Census Center.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you all being here. At this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Strode for an invocation.
God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for grace, mercy, and protection. Dispatch your ministering angels to have oversight of this meeting, to ensure that our work is done decent, in order, and acceptable in your sight. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, I put on the agenda that I would like to say what my hopes and goals are for this evening. My hope and goal is that we perhaps as a commission can come to a consensus about which map we think is in the best interest of the entire community. The way I sort of look at this, and as I've said all along, notice and an opportunity to be heard is a very important part of this process. So my thought would be that if we do have a consensus, we can agree that this is the map that we want to vote on, but maybe hold off on that vote until the next meeting, next Monday. As everyone knows, this is a lot of data and a lot to digest. And by doing it that way, that'll give the public one more opportunity to be heard. Having said that, it's up to the commission to decide how we're going to handle these matters. But I did want to set that out as perhaps a goal for this evening. I know to some extent we all want to get this over with, but again, I think it's very important that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. Having said that, I want to thank Mr. Johnson for being here today, and it's my understanding based upon our working meeting. Oh, let me back up. We need to go ahead and vote on the minutes. I think the minutes have been distributed. These are the minutes from the October 28th meeting. I assume everyone's had an opportunity to review those. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? Hearing none. Anyone opposed?
I don't oppose, but for those that made the motion, would you please state your name for the recorder, please?
Okay, Byron Hickey.
Barbara Chambers.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Williams. Okay, hearing no objection, the minutes are accepted. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Judge. Good evening, everyone. As you've got in your packets, you know that we've done we heard what you had to say at the work session. We came back and did a few more readjustments, and we'll go through this quick presentation real quick, and then get on to talking about the new scenarios that have been presented. So again, this is Muskogee County. We had everything counted for us, including Fort Benning as a group count. They are not part of our redistricting mission because they do not vote in local elections, but they do vote in state and federal elections. So 199,814 is our actual number. In 2020, we saw black population increase to 48%. We also saw other minority counts also increase during this time. To give you an idea about 2020, there's a good example of how it's changed over the last 10 years to become a majority-minority community. Our district population goals, as we've gone over before, is to get 24,977 people in each district. That's easier said than done, obviously, as we're on our fourth meeting here. But we're here to get it right. Our actual population range, as I just said, each one will not have the ideal 24,977. The State Reapportionment Office wants us to have a variance of 1%. That roughly equates to 250 people or less. And the population range for each district would be between 24,727 and 25,227. Our population overview right now, these are all within 1%, but as you can see, we have districts 1, 5, 7, and 8 that are under target, and then 2, 4, and 6 are over target. And 3 is actually dead on the money. This is one of the first, this is the first scenario we brought you all that protected all the incumbents, but really showed some changes in lines. This is scenario C, which you all discussed heavily at the last meeting. At the last meeting, we also brought you scenario D, which cleaned up a lot of what was requested at our second meeting by people that were here in the gallery. We also had E, which had a couple of little adjustments to especially those southern districts. And then F, which again, just minor tweaks between those three scenarios. What we're coming with you tonight is scenario G and H. Scenario G is the same as scenario D for districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8, but we did make changes to 5 and 6 after hearing concerns from the commission at the work session last week. 5 and 6 do have the population to play with, but we did have to do some alterations to 7 and 8. But we brought 5 further south, back to its previous lines as best we could, and moved District 6 to its previous lines as best we could. We obviously had to pull some from District 8, and then to make District 7 whole, District 7 had to take some from District 8. And we'll get into the specific 5 and 6 maps here. On both scenarios G and H, you will see that District 7 reaches all the way up to 54th Street. to the south side of 54th Street, but does not get into the Bellwood neighborhood. Here is the actual district map for District 5. Again, like I said, we did pull, if you remember in scenario D and E and F, District 5 really started digging into District 6. We were able to find the numbers in other places and pull those lines back as best we could. And this is District 6. You can see that that district picked up a lot more than what it had in the previous scenarios. It is gonna, if these are adopted, it would lose Flat Rock Park, the Midland Commons development, and then some of the neighborhoods around Weems Road. In scenario H, it is the same as scenario E for districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8. Again, the only change is between 5 and 6. Here it is again. With 8 and 7 this time, 8 keeps 54th Street south, but 7 picks up a little bit to the east around the Lake Bottom area. But again, 5, again, picks up those same areas and then does stretch a little bit north on Weems Road. And then 6 again loses pretty much the same thing it does in scenario G. And just to give you a recap of the composite maps, this is C. As you can see how 5 really jumps up into 6. This is D. This is E. F. And then G. And you can see how it's starting to pull back down. And the same with H. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm sure we do have some questions.
Does G and H change the number of population? What's the number of changes in each of those?
It was in the email. I don't have the demographics in front of me. It was in your email. Do you have? You got them? Yeah. Demographics, Mr. Hales, for 5 and 6. Is it Mr. Hales? 5 and 6 on G and H, 5 and 6 on G and H. So District 5 is 25,156. Again, it is within 1%.
Go to District 6.
And then 6 is very similar, 25,146, 68%.
Do you want to look at H?
Within the 1%.
And we want to look at H now?
Yeah, you can look at H.
Okay. 5 for H.
And then it's pretty much the same, numbers-wise. There are 10 more people in 6. Wait, are you on 5 still?
Oh, 5. This
Okay,
is 5 for G.
go to 6.
Or 5 for H. This is
Yeah,
6
they're
for
the
H.
same. The only difference really is between 7 and 8 on the G and H scenarios.
Mr. Hales, did you receive the email from Ms. Hodge with scenarios G and H, and then the redistricting demographics? It's the 5th PDF down. If so, it does a great job of comparing each plan and each demographic breakout for each district. And then those areas of concern are highlighted in red for each plan in each district. If you can pull up that demographic, it makes it pretty clear to see how they change if you receive that. If not, I'll go print some off. Of course, mine won't be in red because I don't have a color printer, but.
That's fine.
This isn't a question, but more of a comment. From analyzing the demographics from the email, it does look as if H, in my opinion, does the most, it keeps incumbents in their seats, but also from a population standpoint, a racial makeup, it doesn't change things too drastically there either. So just wanted to add that commentary to see what anyone thinks about that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Roberts.
I had sent the map to the Councilor Allen in District 6, and he called me about maybe 30, 45 minutes before the meeting, and he had a couple of things to consider, which I gave you. And so there are some tweaks that he would like, I think, to look at.
Yes, sir, and we're going to do that.
Sure.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure
Thank
we might
you.
have other questions as we discuss things. Now, I will open this up for discussion. Y'all want to take a few minutes? Okay. Hearing none, do we have thoughts about the scenarios that have been presented tonight?
Judge D'Antonio, before we get to the end of the process and before it's time to take a vote, if we could, per the scenario, if we could just have the demographics and not so many sheets of paper. And I know we got to do it right now as we're working through, but once we decide we're at that point before we take the vote, I think it's just easier. And the reason I say that is people are, I don't know about others, but I've received calls and emails and people are asking me specific questions. And if I'm rifling through a lot of papers, you know, we're happy to serve, but it can take up a lot of time. So if we could probably request, if we could just kind of, because it's a lot. And of course, I'm a old school, so I'm going to save every sheet. But when people are calling and inquiring, then it makes it easier if we can just kind of have quick facts. I think that's what the term would be.
I agree with you. I do think it would be very helpful. I see Ms. Boren. When was this email sent out from Ms. Hodge?
So she sent it twice. The first time was, appears to be November 15th, and that was the second resend, or maybe, yeah.
So it was sent Friday and Wednesday, is that what y'all are saying? And is there a way to pull up those demographics here? Because I agree.
Right, and I do have all my hard copies. It's just that we need to, if we can, make it, in the world of the census, we call it fact sheets, where you can just look at that one thing and everything is on that one page. Not trying to create more work, because it is a lot of work, but I think for those of us that might have to speak to folks calling us and inquiring, and I've spent quite a lot of time today speaking with people about this. So that would be helpful. Thank you.
Just for point of discussion, and if we need to save this, that's okay. Is it possible to pull up the 8-page PDF that was sent with the demographic breakout per district? It may be good just for conversation purposes now.
Yeah, certainly. Just one moment. Here we can see the demographics for scenario G and H.
Well, and part of the problem I'm having is Ms. Hodge never sent me those emails. I'm not on that list.
I do think the PDF that was sent, this was probably the easiest thing for you to get to, but the PDF that was sent is much easier to read and color-coded.
And since I've never seen them, I'd really appreciate them being put up. Well, why don't we send them to someone so they can be put up on the screen for everyone? No, I'm missing from both of the emails. Yeah, let's make sure everyone, maybe I was the only one excluded from these emails Ms. Hodge sent, but let's make sure that the entire commission did in fact receive what y'all are talking about, except for me.
So this was the most helpful thing for me to look at, and this is the most comprehensive thing. If you were to look at this and then just the maps separately, just the two things. So let's say, example, you're looking at map H. So let's say we're looking at example H. You can go to each one of the districts and see the population and then racial change per each individual scenario. So in that case, you would only have to look at kind of two separate things. And the other thing that this does is it highlights in red for each district which scenario causes concern, which I thought was really helpful as well. And looking through this, like I said earlier, scenario H, in my opinion, G and H were the ones that ended up working out the best.
And G and H, we did not have at the last meeting for the people that were not here, because we have commissioners here tonight that were not here prior meetings. So G and H is the information that we just received, Pastor Days. So that's new to us. We didn't have that. So I'm with the judge on that. If we're going to call and confer with each other, and then we have elected officials and other community leaders calling us, we need to make sure we're all speaking from the same script, because then it appears that we're not on the same page.
I agree. Like I said, these emails are news to me tonight. Well, let's take a few minutes to look at these and then see what else we need to accomplish today, because Mr. Rodway, if you want to, do you have a question for the group? Oh, no, I'd rather we not all talk. So if there's a question for the group or if anyone else wants to make comments, as I said, apparently the chair was the only one left off of these emails.
Earlier, Mr. Roberts said something about some proposed tweaks to District 6, and I'm curious what those are.
They are, and again, we're going to go, they're Midland Commons, which is the new development where the old Swift Mill was out at 80 in Manchester, Flat Rock Park, and then the Weems Road area and Moon Road area, Stone Mill, Hunters Point, Charter Oaks, in that area. They would like for us to look at those and see if we can do some maneuvering between the two. The only problem you get into is until you start playing with the census blocks, you don't know how big one is. So like Midland Commons might be in a census block with the park and something else because nobody lives at the park and nobody lives at Midland Commons. So it could be a big census block. We just got to get back in there and find out if we can do some tweaking with that.
So I think that answers my next question of, one, the new tweaking hasn't been done, and you guys just don't know how that tweaking will impact the rest of the map.
No, that was a request tonight. Y'all have got the latest and greatest that, from us.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So just to confirm the process that'll happen after these meetings, after the meetings happen, any requests we make, changes will be made, sent to us ahead of time like it was done last week, sent to us on a Wednesday, for us as a group to then review before we come to the meeting to have a discussion. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think it's not very helpful for us to not have the information in front of us and not have had an opportunity to review it before the meeting itself. Otherwise, we're just wasting time.
Or you can still have it, but if maps are not in your normal wheelhouse, you could still have a lot of questions. So, I mean.
I agree.
Yeah, so, I know we have a lot of brilliant people around around this dais, but even if you study it, you still might have questions and concerns.
Right, but it'll at least
But
give
it
you
will
an
help us
opportunity
to
to have
be
informed
familiar.
questions.
Yes, sir, you're right. Absolutely, I concur.
Okay, let me just put it this way, do we have other tweaks we want to ask Mr. Johnson and the city to make for us?
Has anyone talked with Councilor Charmaine Crabb at all about 5? Because those are the only 2 districts that were impacted, really. I like G and H. I mean, I like that. I think those are very good. But I don't know what the impact would be of you looking at that, so.
I've actually talked to Councilor Crabb, and I think that she was pretty much just wanting to stay as close to the census numbers as possible. I think she did like the C option, but everybody else, I think, has decided that's not really on what they want any longer. So she just, whatever we think is best overall is fine with her.
And if we can mix and match here and there, we will, but if we can't, we can't.
Because when one giveth from one part, one taketh from the other.
That's right.
And that's what makes this a challenge. Okay, are there any more comments about what we've had to review today?
A quick question that I have. On those properties that you mentioned on 6, are they originally in the district that he wants, or have they been taken out?
They have been taken out. Our two most populous districts before we even got into this were 2 and 6, which is the Panhandle and Northwest Columbus. So that's we've had to chip away at those 2 to get within the 1% and get the numbers.
Okay, thanks.
Excuse me. So, but that said, are we done with coming up with any more scenarios?
We will look at what Mr. Roberts suggested before the next meeting, and if we can make some changes, we will, but if we can't, we'll be sure to let you know and make sure you have everything, but until we get in there Monday morning and play with it again, I don't know. Or tomorrow morning, yeah.
I have a question. Do you know which options would leave Midland Commons in District 6?
Neither. I'm sorry,
Well-
I don't think any of them,
G and H don't, I don't know about the rest
I
of them.
don't think the others do either.
Okay, because I think he's been involved in that development was his concern.
Yes,
so.
you are correct.
Judge,
Yes.
for any of the commissioners that might want to confer with the planning staff prior to, because sometimes we're having sidebars, prior to the meeting, once they get the email with all the maps, is there a point of contact that a commissioner could reach out to get clarification in advance to the meeting? And that might be helpful.
Well, and I might want to ask Ms. Sheftel about that.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we do not run afoul of any public meetings requirements.
Right, yes, sir.
Individual commission members are free to consult one-on-one with members of staff if they so desire. That's not a meeting with a quorum at which official action can be taken.
So would Ms. Hodge be the person to reach out to?
It would be myself or Ms. Hodge. We would probably be the two. Yes, sir.
So why don't you reach out to both? Okay. Is there anything else? I do want to make another comment in terms of the public. I did notice that, we set up the districting website for people to make comments. In that process, as far as I can tell, there have been 2 comments. The first comment was me sending a test. My comment was, "This is a test." But actually also, the commission doesn't receive the comments. It's my understanding that Ms. Hodges' secretary and Millicent are the only people that receive the comments. I've changed that so that and I think actually the entire commission should be allowed to see the comments. I'm going to read the only other comment. It was from Harry Underwood. Mr. Underwood was present the first meeting we had. He reiterates that the commission should make it a rule to correct district lines to include those who last counted their last voluntary residence in Columbus but are now currently incarcerated. I think, and he cites to a few websites about prison gerrymandering, as it's referred to. I think he did have an opportunity to express those views at our initial meeting also, but I wanted to pass along about the comments. I'd want to encourage the folks out in TV land to submit comments. Again, to me, the most important thing that we do is give everyone an opportunity to be heard. To that extent, is there anyone from the community out here tonight that would like to say something? Unless we have something else from the commissioners.
Mr. Chair and Commission, just want to make sure I'm clear. I missed the last meeting, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear on, do you all have a timetable to vote on this? And the timetable, does that include the submission to the City Council? Thank you, sir.
Well, let me have you introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Marvin Broadwater, Sr. I live at 3004 Slippery Rock Court, 31909, District 6. So I'm just concerned about, I know the last time I was here, you all were concerned about the amount of information that you had to digest. And it seems as though, as I'm looking on it, like you have more again. So I'm just concerned, you all are going to make, I'm sure you're going to make the best decision for this community, but I'm concerned about, again, as I've always said, when I look around the room, I don't see a whole lot of folks in the room. And I've asked several times that this is done on a Saturday. Thank you.
And, well, to that extent, the deadline for us to, given the 6-month constraints, and Ms. Boren or Ms. Sheftel, feel free to chime in on this one, the constraints in terms of the May 24th election, we've already, or May 20, that we're not going to meet that deadline, so we're really talking about districts that will go into effect in 2024. So we do have some time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor, Mr. Huff? Anyone? Go ahead.
Would it be helpful to have the council members and the board members here at one of the meetings to voice their concerns about losing or gaining constituents?
Yes, but that's something that's completely up to, and we have had council members. There's nothing stopping anyone from appearing.
Okay, because to me, G and H are great proposals, and you know, if somebody had questions about some of their districts, you know, it would be helpful to know what those concerns are.
I will say we welcome, counselors to comment just as any other member of the public would, but we do not want this to become a joint meeting with a quorum of council present as well.
I won't let that happen. All right, so do we want to discuss whether there's a consensus between G and H? Or do we still have more questions and need to revisit this?
Maybe I've missed something, but I thought there was a question about 6, that the information still has to come forward. Did I miss that? Okay. So we probably should wait until whatever that is that's just my opinion.
Well, why don't we clarify what is the question about 6 and see if Mr. Johnson has a clear understanding of what the issue is.
It's Mr. Council Allen would like certain things in his district that he has now that are not in his district with these proposals. So we will go back and we will look and see if we can adjust some of that and make the numbers still work.
So that's something that you will be doing tomorrow among all of your other hats that you wear.
Right, we'll get on that tomorrow.
Okay.
And we will let you know, it won't take long to let you know whether we can do it or not.
You're adjusting District 6 for both G and H?
It would be, but again, there's no guarantees.
Okay.
5 and 6 are already doing a balancing act between the two in G and H now. And again, it's not like you can go in there and just pick a neighborhood and move them. If it's in a block, which is several neighborhoods, then you end up collecting a whole bunch of people and you throw off your 1%. So no promises there.
Counselor?
Yes, sir. Thank you. To the commission and the chairman. The question was asked about councilors coming. I think we've all been invited, so it's an open invitation to anyone that wants to be here. But thank you for taking time out. I just want to let you know how important this was to me. I woke up in Savannah this morning, finishing a conference. I left Savannah at 1:30. I arrived in Columbus at 5:15, and here I am. I thank you for your work. It's important to me, my district. I run again next year, and so far, so good. I have back probably 500 to 700 people that have worked with me over the last eight years now, so thank you.
Is there anything else we need to discuss tonight?
Judge, I'm sorry. I'm
Go
that
ahead.
student that always had to talk, but I made good grades. If we could provide the number for Ms. Hodge and the planning staff, Mr. Johnson, like he needs more work. I know he's very busy. But I think that will help with some of the commissioners that might have a question, since Lucy said it's okay if an individual commissioner calls staff to ask the question in advance. I think that will be helpful.
Okay, and Mr. Johnson's phone numbers and email are on the PowerPoint itself that's been distributed. Hate to do this to you, Mr. Johnson. Phone number is 706-225-3930, wjohnson@columbusga.org. Is there anything else we need to accomplish tonight?
I'm curious as to where we all stand on G and H. I mean, it seems from a few of us that it's acceptable. And then secondly, if we're going to, I would like to at least consider trying to find a way to limit any additional time that we spend insofar as seeking comments from the existing city councilors. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's get on it. And if there's additional work that needs to be done, but let's put a time limit on it to the extent that we can, get that feedback, provide that to Mr. Johnson and Ms. Hodge, and then try to find a consensus, because as it stands now, it sounds like G and H are acceptable to at least some of us sitting around the table.
And as I agree with you that council and others have had ample opportunities to participate. To the gentleman's question about a Saturday, I think we had scheduled a Saturday if we ended up going that long. Although I'm hopeful that we might be able to get this. It does seem like there's a consensus between G and H, and I'm hopeful perhaps by next Monday, especially if questions are addressed to Mr. Johnson and Ms. Hodge, and looking at the feasibility of Councilor Allen's concerns, we might be able to have a vote next week. In light of that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Well, I will take that as a second.
State your name, state your name.
Anyone opposed? Okay. See you all next week.